2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 138 of Fight Chat Friday. Today we have a guest, Arto from Sweden, and we're going to get stuck into what's behind the success of some countries in international Taekwondo competition.
Excellent. So I think this kind of crept up as a conversation. You know, we've just finished the European Championships. We've had a new order to the hierarchy of things. Romania finishing first, Poland second, Ukraine third, mostly off the strength of their junior competitors, and Ireland finishing in fourth place, and so on. We're seeing some countries consistently coming to the top of the international rankings, Europeans and worlds alike. And Arto's asking the question along with ourselves of, well, okay, what is it that allows certain countries to be successful repeatedly? And then what are the kind of the moving gears or the levers that you can pull to start to bring a country or a national team forward if you're not consistently achieving the top 5 or 6 nations? What's going to get you there? Is that fair, Arto?
Yeah, this is really interesting topic because we were talking about this before when Poland were in the top, and everybody was looking at Poland, and now we see there have been a change in the top. Romania is in the top, and we can see some a change there. And of course, this is interesting. What are these countries doing, and especially Ireland?
Mm-hmm. Well, do you want to talk about the first? I don't know if you want to call it a rumor or what does it? What is it? But the idea that there are, I think, professional Taekwondo people.
Yeah, let's talk about like this. Some people think that in one of the success Ireland has is that they are paid. They get free rides to the European Championships and World Championships. The federation pay for them. This is why they can put a lot of time and effort for the training, because they don't have the financial problem. But yeah, you have the answers?
Well, straight off the bat, the straight answer is no, that it really is a rumor. And we spoke before we recorded of how this was also a rumor when I was growing up, how Poland were also in the same situation. But I think there's no real professional Taekwondo athletes. Some people train almost semi-professionally in terms of their time input. But generally, like, the only people who can do this at a really high level are people who are still in university, who have a little bit extra time, as well as some people are Taekwondo instructors as well, which goes in hand in hand with them to allow them to do a little bit more extra training. Of course, there's some people in certain parts of the world who have a bit of a, let's call it a camp, and they can train frequently, the likes of Barada, the likes of Triqui, people like that who have a nice crew together around the world, and then they can get together and train quite consistently and often. But I don't think there's any professional people, and I think from an Irish perspective, there's nobody paid to go to the championships by no means. So that's kind of debunking that one straight off the bat.
Yeah, I think you have to draw a line between professional, as in paid for your work in the activity, and training professionally. Or, you know, so if we talk about like high level amateur athletes, so people who might be moving towards being Olympians or whatever, very often they're not paid by the sport, or they might be on a kind of a stipend to support their training. But at best in Taekwondo, you know, for most countries, the country might be able to partly support or cover the majority of the cost of travelling to a championships, but you're still covering all of your training and coaching costs yourself and everything that goes with that. And in recent years with Ireland, sure, we've been able to provide a small proportion of the cost through sponsorship, but never more than a small proportion of the cost. And our athletes would love to hear that there's something coming down the line where they'd be fully paid for, but it's not quite being the case. But we do have examples of countries, I suppose, where there is greater government support if they're winning more medals at an international level. So whether or not that gets the athletes is another thing. And we certainly have countries who do some job of supporting their athletes to get to the championships. But I don't think that is anywhere near enough to provide a competitive advantage to one country over another. I think that just means the economics of traveling and competing in ITF Taekwondo are a real thing. If you're coming from a country where you have a high disposable income, you have a better chance of being able to attend competitions more regularly than in a country where there's overall a lower economic income or a lower value to the currency. So it's going to be difficult coming from, let's say, Romania without government support to frequently attend championships, but we'll probably see that change, much as we did with Poland over the years. As the economic situation improves, all of a sudden the burden is put back on the competitors and they have to pay for themselves once again.
Yeah, I think that if you switch that around then as well and look at sparring in particular, generally people are quite younger now when they're competing at senior level. And from myself, for example, I started competing internationally when I was 14 years old, and I was done by the time I was 25. And I know, Arto, you competed much later in your career, taking medals senior level much older. But like, when did you start competing internationally for Sweden?
I was 25, I think. So I was quite old. Yeah, I never had a junior career because I was not on that level. So I was quite old, but then I had like 10 years. So
yeah, that's very similar to my story, actually. I didn't compete internationally until I was 20 and finished when I was 30. So, you know, I think that concept of 10 years of a level of consistent training and traveling and investing and all of the rest of it is a thing. And with so many people starting at 14 years of age or 13 years of age now, you know, 25, that's quite a long, like you I think for you, Richie, you nearly had 10 years at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think that is a factor of it, because now people are actually training at the high level as if they're semi-professional in terms of the time input and the sacrifice it takes. But then the return they're getting, because of a financial input and things like that, they're not getting the return. So people, I think, as a result of that, number one, they're doing it for so long, you want to move on to new things in your life. But also then the fact there's no return or any real incentive to keep going because of the financial. It's fine when you're in college and university and you can spend a bit more time doing things like this, but then it's going to come a stage when you need to get a real job and support yourself financially. So I think that is a real factor of it as well. They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
Linked to that, I'd be really curious, and this was one of my recommendations to the ITF at one point in time, that we have an under 23 section, because what you have is, for the ones that, you know, would hope to have some longevity in the sport, every year you have a new 18-year-old coming into the senior division who is probably, you know, a bit tall for the weight, and they just haven't grown into themselves fully yet. You know, they're very, very quick, they're very young, they still have all of this time for training. They're, you know, and basically what we're saying is, because of the nature of the sport, they probably have more time while they're still supported from home, while they're still perhaps going to university. They don't have to work full time, they're not raising a family. At that point in time, there is one type of competition, and we see over and over and over again, hitting 23, 24, 25 years of age and they're falling out of the sport. But they're around long enough to make it almost impossible for the ones who are 24 to 5, 6 all the way through to be competitive. So I think we end up with, you know, a problem on both sides. So the longevity of competitors in the sport is a real deal. And you could look at, let's say, Team Ireland, where, you know, someone who's 28 on the squad is old. Like, that's the old person on the squad, where not so very long ago we had 40-year-olds and 38-year-olds and so on the team, and we just don't see that, you know, happening anymore. So I do think this question of longevity is a real thing in terms of the development of high performance. I think there's a lot of countries focusing their high performance efforts younger, at these 14 and 15-year-olds, that I don't think we ever focused on before, you know, going back, you know, a little bit further. And the tendency is that, you know, there's only so long that you'll spend at that highest level of effort and investment before something else looks shiny and attractive, particularly when it's not your paycheck, it's not your day-to-day. So I think looking at that, or even having two streams where you've got people who are, you know, maybe started training as teenagers who only really come into their prime at 21, 22, 23, you know, is something countries will have to look at.
Yeah, like if you take the senior males, for example, who won the Euros last week, Finn, he's only just senior. Ziga, 63, just senior a year or two. You know, you have moving up then to 70, James, just senior really a year or two. Luke, he's in around that 23 mark rate, maybe.
24,
in around there. Yeah, then you move up to Alamin, who's been around for a long time, but he's still quite young. You know, and then you move up to the plus division as well. You've got Arto Kuzmin from Romania, who's only, or sorry, Ukraine. He's only just senior as well. So it just shows that, you know what I mean, it's getting younger and younger at that high level.
Yeah, definitely. How can, if you look at the youngers that coming up, can you see any things that people that were young and juniors that had a success that are falling off faster than the people that didn't have the success, that they still want to be they want to try to get a good medal as they are seniors? You can see this.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Especially in Ireland, there's been so many people who've won even multiple European championships or even world titles before they become senior, and then that's it, they're done, because they've achieved their goal. It's like, what's next? You know, and it's nice for some people, they want to do it at senior, and some do. But I think we've seen so many people throughout the years in Ireland in particular who have not even transitioned to the senior level because they've just had that success so young.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, as Richie knows, of the bronze medal. There's something about having a little success, a little taste of the success along the way, that's very, very valuable for helping a person, even from like on the national level, you know, from younger. Too many gold medals too early sometimes lets people become complacent. And then when it gets hard, they haven't experienced that before. And then you also have people who, you know, let's say they turn senior and they were the junior champion, or they win their first senior title on their first year senior. From there, the only direction to go is down. And it's very difficult to work on your motivation when the only thing you can potentially achieve is worse, you know, or the same. Like it's a hard thing. It's much easier to motivate yourself. Let's say, for example, if it works, like, you know, we all know that the path to success isn't a straight line, and it wiggles and bends. But if you accidentally find yourself at this top level of success, the motivation to try to get back there again for a lot of people, the risk and reward they're not quite there. You know, if you stop now, you're the best. But if you go back again, the chances are you won't be the best the next time. And it takes I think it takes a certain kind of philosophy and psychology to understand and to really appreciate the journey and the steps in the process. So if you can really just enjoy the training and the steps in the process, it helps with this longevity, and it really helps with motivating the person to come back again. But very often they just want a new challenge, somewhere where they can be a beginner again and not have that weight of expectation and pressure.
Yeah, I agree.
We talk a little bit maybe about the selections, because I think this is a thing that countries do very differently. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you go about selecting your national team in Sweden.
Yeah, we have a system that is like, if you win the Swedish championships, you are the first to get to the team for the next year. So if you win 2023, you have your place for the Euros 2024.
Okay.
This is yours. And the second place, we call it like a wild card. So every weight category has two places or the pattern. So the wild cards is chosen by the national coaches or the head coach for the, like for pattern. The head coach for the pattern choose the wild card for the pattern, and for the sparring it's from that coach, etc. So this is the system we have. And this system is just to avoid conflicts. I think that's the nature of selections. No matter what you do, no one will ever agree 100% with the decisions that are made, because we have to all acknowledge that there is some degree of bias, and also because, you know, every result is only a snapshot in time. Maybe on another day with some different referees, the result goes another way. And it's always a little bit difficult, but we use a similar system. We have, you know, the winner of the national championships usually is the one that is selected for the Europeans, because the national championships is in November and the Europeans are in April, and that works okay. But very often we have to have an additional selection event to sort out some of the placings, you know, just to finalize it. But the effect of selections, I think, in the long term on high performance is actually pretty significant, because
the effect of being selected once really increases the chances that you get selected again. Because I think, especially in ITF compared to some other competitive disciplines, the additional time, effort and training that is put into on a national level, the ones who make the national team, is not accessible to the rest of the competitors, really. And so the amount of work that they would have to do on their own to overcome the training and the expertise provided to the ones who make the national team is really difficult. So there is, for me, like almost like this really narrow choke point where if the first time you can possibly be selected, you do get selected, you have a very good chance of going on and being selected again and again and again and improving. But if you miss it, it becomes a little bit more difficult the next time, and then more and more and more difficult, over time as the others get the advantage of the training. I actually think it's even more noticeable in pattern than in sparring.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think that as well, because you're going away to those championships, you're going to improve by just being there and experiencing it as well. So then when you come back to compete with people who are just national competitors, let's say, there is another bridge to be gapped there for that person who is not at that level. So that's actually a very good point. But I think as well, there's another point of high performance in terms of a group as well. And that's when you go from your club training, let's call it, and your regular scheduled training into another like elite group as well of your, even if it's a region, maybe it's your club with other people. But that, I think, is a big factor to success for many people, that we see that they have a training group of high level people that they can work with, spar with, get rounds with. I think that, like, we all know iron sharpens iron, and I think that is a big factor as well to the success of a lot of people who are finding the wins and getting to the champion level at the minute.
I think that's one of the things that maybe for countries on the outside looking in about Ireland is maybe not as obvious. So as maybe, it's very easy for us on the outside to say, Slovenia achieved fantastic results because Thomas Barada is an amazing coach. Okay, and that's easy because, you join the dots and it all looks nice and neat and tidy. But it's never as simple as this. And when you look at Ireland, the results over the years, yes, there are fantastic coaches and clubs who bring forward really good competitors and then they go and achieve great results. But I do think that a huge part of it for us is that because the country is small, even when the population of people doing Taekwondo in Ireland wasn't so big, we could meet each other very often. And so if it happened to be that there were 3 or 4 people in 70 kilo category, for example, who were good, well, they were training with each other and not just competing against each other, but training against and with each other on a regular basis and with the divisions above and below. And that really means that they're not stuck with whoever's in their club. They're not stuck with, I'm the best 70 kilo fighter in my club, but actually the rest of my competitors are 85 plus 85 and female and, junior and whatever. So the training is never ideal unless the clubs are very big or if there's a good big training group within a club.
Yeah.
So for us, a huge advantage comes from being able to create this training environment, no matter which club is doing well or not doing well in one year. We still have the advantage of bringing everybody together centrally. Maybe in a European and World Championships year, it could be 12 times, 13 times in that year. And so, if you get to spar with the very best people in the country who are close to your weight division, and train with them and try exercises with them, try things to see if they'll be effective, and learn from the experience of, it didn't work here, it did work against this person, it didn't work here. And you get access to all of the brain power that's in that room too, because, and I don't mean only the coaches, I mean the competitors. So they tell you what they see, they tell you what's working and why it's working or what isn't working and what they see. And I think that's something that is hard to replicate if your country is like Canada, where you need to take a 6-hour flight to go from one side to the other. It can be really difficult to excel, from that perspective. And I think sometimes you see with these countries, they do better in power breaking, special technique and pattern, because those you don't need the cooperation of a teammate for. For those you can train very, very well by yourself. But for sparring, you need opponents. I think it's a big factor.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as well, like in terms of what you see on social media. Now, I'm not saying that that's what everything to be going off social media, obviously, but I think a lot of teams are trying to learn their new skills in their like national squads as well, and trying to like do drills and learn new skills and do physical work. Well, a lot of the top people are actually, like you said, Adrian, are using to get the rounds in against each other with active opponents, you know, working in scenarios that are high percentage, things that come up time and time again. And I think that that is a big difference as well, because I see from social media, some people are doing like ladder drills and jumping over kick shields and doing a lot of kicking of pads and stuff, where you should be using that time when everybody is together in a group to make use of the active people, like the top people there that you can spar with. Because we're very lucky that, because we were speaking before we were recording, that ITF sparring is now so fast, and a byproduct of that is the contact is not that heavy. So it means that you should be able to train often and spar often. You know, it's not like we're doing MMA or boxing or full contact where the contact is a big issue that you need to step back and do other things to supplement. So I think that that is another big factor as well, that some teams and countries aren't getting the most and not getting the best bang for their buck in that regards, in terms of the working with each other who have active opponents that can spar more often.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's jump into this topic a little bit. So given everything that we've said, what are the people who are finding their way to the top of the divisions actually doing? And, you know, what are they doing that's different maybe from the ones that are experiencing less success? So I wanted to kind of poke a hole in one thing to start here, and then I want to hand over to Arto, because I think he has a good insight onto this particular one, especially after this recent championships, which is the idea that, you know, all of the European Championships or the World Championships level is high performance level. And because every country can select up to 2 people per division, very often the people that we're selecting are not all at the highest level. Even within a country, we have some people who we're hoping that will develop and become, you know, really good over time, and others that we expect a performance from. So because some people are training 2 and 3 times a week and that's it and they're done, and other people train a little bit more and they make very much more deliberate choices about how they use their time. So let's talk about what some of the best people do. And I know Arto did some programming with Alameen and with Tina Belavanis and maybe some others as well. So do you want to talk about maybe how people like that, or how much time maybe people like that are spending on training?
Yeah. You know Alameen, and he's a really dedicated person. He contacted me like 7 months ago and asked for help because he wanted to increase his speed more than I think he's really fast, but he wanted to do some more, and this was what he felt. And of course, all the programming is individual. You never can do a program that fits a group, because when you come to high performance, we talk about individual training, and for his now what we did was looking at the first thing we looked at, how is his or he sent me his report of the aerobic and anaerobic that values he had, and that he made some tests, you know. And then he made some strength tests, and we were looking at what can we do to maybe change a little bit. And he had time. He's dedicated to do more training. Of course, like I told you, it's individual. And let's say 2-3 times a week, more than only the taekwondo. Taekwondo in kickboxing for is maybe 5 or 6 times a week, and then we put 2-3 times strength training, short sessions, and a lot of the training when we go to the high performance, it's not to do heavy deadlifts. It's to do like more close to what happens on the tatami. Try to get like, for example, we put some pogo jumps with 1 kilo 1 kilos, having in the each hand 1 kilos, and do the pogo jump for 10 seconds, and then you have rest, just to activate the muscles in the calves, because you can see that we use these muscles a lot when we are on the tatami, and I think if you want to go for the highest level, you don't need to put extra training, but it can benefit. You can benefit from it, but it's all a lot of depend who you are and how much time you want to put, and what is your history of training. You can see many athletes, their history is not, maybe they didn't do 5 or 6 times a week. Maybe they did 3 times a week training. You cannot put 4 times more in a week for them and think they're going to benefit from that. No, I don't think they're going to benefit. It's going to be more harm for them. High performance is really, really individual.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I think as well, a lot of people, they see now and they hear you say like these pogo jumps for kilos, and now they're going to jump on that bandwagon real quick. But you made 2 good points. It's individualized programming, which is very important, but also the number one thing that comes is sparring skill number 1. And I think that a lot of people make the mistake, especially younger people who are more impressionable, see training workouts on Instagram and see what people are doing. Those people may like want to get that result much faster and then try to rely on their speed and do the same as the best. But it's really the sparring skills that need to be improved first, and you need to be able to compete at that high level with the sparring skills. That's the big picture stuff, and I think that that's a big thing as well. What's your thoughts on that, Arto?
Of course, the skill training, number 1, always number 1, the skill training. If you want to be good in the sparring, you need to do sparring. You cannot replace it for today I go to the gym, or today I go running. You cannot change this. You cannot replace it. The skill training is the first. When you come to a higher level, then you can start to see what can I do more to benefit a little bit more from something to get me. If I feel people look at me, oh, he's fast, he's explosive, but I feel I'm not. What can I do to make me feel more explosive and get more power? This is the help when you can get. So just want to say that never change the skill training or try to replace it with something else. It won't help you. But
yeah, I think
if you do your skill training, like 4 or 5 days a week and you have an extra day, what can you benefit from that extra day? This is important.
For sure. I think one of the things that, is also forgotten is that not all training is equal. So a person who does 4 Taekwondo classes in the week, but the classes is a little bit towards the green belts who are doing their grading next week and is also a little bit towards that. It's not the same thing. And, I'm a club instructor, and this is the reality sometimes with the club that we try to, but we really try to separate it so that for a particular point in time, we're really focused more on the competitors who are going to the championships. And then afterwards, they have to take the focus off them completely, and we focus on the ones who will be doing the grading in 6 weeks. So we almost have to operate like a season for grading and a season for competition and, rely on their individual work. It's very difficult for most instructors to provide 4 or 5 relevant training sessions in the week for a student unless they also make the time to individualize the training for those people, and this is where clubs who are of a certain size with respect to the people who are competitive and competitively focused and the right age and so on, they have a big advantage over time if they can keep a sustained group who are maybe 12, 20 people who are competitive, even if not at the same level. It helps to keep pushing through those because the training sessions can be more relevant more of the time. Whereas if your club has 50 or 60 people in it and one of them wants to compete on the national team, the chances of them getting a relevant training session when they turn up to the club are smaller.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Can we talk about one more slightly different thing just while we're on the topic there, which is how the information game has changed specifically within the sparring, where now compared to years ago, you could turn up at the championships, and if you were doing something new, nobody could see that you were doing that something new until you stepped on the floor and did it. Now it's a bit more difficult, and it's also possible that, you know, we can see what's happening in South America, North America, they see what's happening in Europe, and they can prepare, because we have YouTube, we have this show, we have other things that are, you know, that people put out there, and we get to see what the competitors do. But I think some competitors make much better use of this than others. Then, you know, they have much better information about their division, mainly because they go to more championships and they, you know, they record more. Maybe they spend more time on it and make deliberate plans for the people that they're coming up against. But I think information advantage is a much more real thing now than it used to be 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. You in my opinion, you have two kind of information. You have information where you can see the fights. Actually, you can see the whole fights, and you can, if you have good eyes, a good coach can take a lot of information from that to see what the opponents do. And then you have the information about all the drills that coming up. You know, you can see 3 seconds somebody do bandedoli chagi or something, and you think that, wow, everybody's doing bandedoli chagi, and you get information. The thing that you don't usually see in the information is that how did they get there with the strength training, maybe the conditioning, etc. Because you can see one kick hit, but you don't see that this top athlete made this kick 10,000 times. This you don't see, and this information is not written anywhere. You need to understand this, so you cannot, all the drills that you see, you cannot just copy them and take them. You need to put them in a perspective, where you do it, how many, what kind of session is it, etc., etc.
In fact, I don't even think that most of the drills that you see on Instagram even happen, really. It's almost like they're created for the camera, because it's the one
created for the camera.
Yeah, it's the one that you know, oh well, we tried that night because, you know, we're doing something new, creative, different. It was fun. We wanted to enjoy training a little bit, so we did something new, and we took a 10-second clip of, you know, 2 good examples or 3 good examples, and that's good for Instagram, and away we go. It has a different motivation, you know. It's where some of the learning is the real tough learning is messy. It comes from the mistakes. It comes from the things you tried that didn't work, and the time that you did something and got a bloody nose, and that doesn't look so good on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is what I'm talking about.
That's 100% true, because it's still about the fundamentals in sparring is what we need. We need people with very good timing, very good distance control. You know, they can move well, and they have some abilities to land some good shots when it's needed. And like, people that can do that are the people that are able to do it the best, you know. And it's like, we think about the Pareto principle of 80-20. It's like, you want to practice the scenarios that get 80% of the results, not the 20% of the flying bandedoli chagi 360 or whatever, you know what I mean? It's about doing the good, solid fundamentals often and correctly, and that's what the best in the world, not even Europe, are good at.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with that one. And maybe that is, I don't know if there's a roundup. Do each of you have a summary or something that came to you through the conversation or before that you want to kind of maybe finish with as a statement?
Yeah. Or I have a question for you.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. We were talking about this, the success of Ireland, and if you guys can just tell me like 3 or 4 stable points, foundations that your organization put as these foundations is the one of the, or these are the keys for that we have the good level that we have in our country. Just like 3, 4, but really necessary to have a good level in the national level.
Well, from my point of view, more of a competitor on the international scene. Like, I came after Adrian's generation, let's say, But from my point of view, it all stems from a couple of people in the country who had to struggle for a long time and sacrifice a lot, the likes of Adrian and other people on the national team and on that scene, who traveled the world, learned from other people, got seminars in, tried to learn from the best, and then filtered all that information down and tried to make a good system for people coming along. I think that's a big factor. Second of all, the idea that our country is quite a small country, like we said earlier, that we can get people together, have training groups that link up pretty well. And that's a big factor as well. You know, earn, sharpens, earn, as we said, and you want to get in good sparring training with other people high level. And as well as that, I think we have some people who are very talented as well, of course, and then linked up working hard with that. I think that's a big factor of the success for the country.
I think there's a few things that are maybe a little bit different from the tone of the rest of the conversation, but are quite important. I think we had to take a long-term view as well, that you don't develop a competitor overnight. They need a lot of support for a long time, and their clubs and their coaches need a lot of support as well. But one of the things we really focused on was improving the quality of our national level competitions, because we wanted everybody to have a good experience, and the longer they stay in the sport, the more good experiences they can have. So making sure that, for example, the age categories, belt categories and height categories and so on, so we go by height until 13 years of age, and we match all of the heights to the national growth charts, so we match the averages, and we try to keep the divisions as tight as possible for age and for and of course by grade and belt, so that everyone feels like they have a pretty fair chance and a fair opponent. Nobody is very small in their division or very big. And that was kind of a first step. And then when we went to the black belt division, we noticed a lot of the younger black belts were being beaten by the 17 and 18 year olds and discouraged. So we created a division so that people who didn't want to contest national team selection that year could enter into a 14 and 15 years black belt division that eliminated all of the national team athletes. So it allowed people to spend maybe 1 or 2 years after getting their black belt before they became thrown into the shark tank of the most competitive ones. And then for the most competitive ones, we wanted to make sure that, a bad draw on one day didn't mean that you only had one match. So we brought in, for sparring at least, requalification. So everybody has to lose at least 2 times before they're out of the competition at all of the black belt competitions. So again, I think some of those things, as we tried to improve the experience of our competitions, even keeping the days shorter so that people have a reasonable amount of time, they're not tired, it's easier for their families to support them and bring them to the competitions. We felt that those kind of moves were very important to have enough people competing consistently to have, like Richie said, iron sharpening iron, and build the quality of competitors over time. And then support the coaches, because the coaches have to be able to talk to each other and share ideas. And originally, many years ago, the coaches, if they had a good idea, they wouldn't tell anyone, because they thought that was their secret sauce that meant that they would be successful and others wouldn't. And really, we're not competing against each other in Ireland. We are, and it's sometimes friendly, sometimes very competitive. But really, we're trying to prepare a team to take on the rest of the world. And so the more we share information with each other and ideas with each other, the quicker we can improve. And that means then, instead of me thinking about, I need to keep the information from Richie so that I can beat Richie at the next championships, actually that's irrelevant. If myself and Richie have all of the information, we train each other as students as best as we can. When we get to the championships, the ones who adapt the information and use it best win, sure. But it doesn't really matter in the long term if it's mine or Richie's on, next Sunday. It matters in 10 years when those 12-year-olds are 22 and trying to win a world title. It helps that they've had really good competition and exposure against other quality opponents all the way up. Winning easily because you figure something out and don't share it with everybody else only works for, 1 tournament, 2 tournaments, and then, everyone catches up. So for us, creating a culture amongst the coaches that there's no information that's precious or sacred or hidden, and everything is shared and challenged as well. Nobody gets to be a genius or a guru because they're a 7th degree or something. If their idea is stupid, their idea is stupid, and we don't use it. And then, if an idea that comes from a 1st degree is good, okay, it's a good idea. And I think for me, finally, a big thing from when I started, the coach was the only one who had the voice. Now the athlete has the voice as well. So the input from the athletes, what they're experiencing in the ring, what they see the challenges are. As coaches, we try to help them to solve problems, but they're the ones who experience the problems, and and help us to shape the training. So we don't know what the solution is for next year. So if we start trying to train the 10-year-olds to spar like the ones who are winning now, they're going to be 10 years out of date. So we have to work with those people when they're younger. They're not sparring in the same style as the ones who are sparring now. They're taking the ideas from it, but they're innovating on it themselves. They're working on things that are, successful and so on. But we're hoping that they come up with their own style. That's that they solve the problems that we're seeing now, but also the problems that we know we had 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago. They have to try to find solutions for all of those. And I think making sure that the athletes have a voice, and that the coach's role is helping with the problem solving and creating new solutions, rather than being the place where all the wisdom comes from and the athletes do everything the coaches say exactly as they say it. I think that was a big change for us here.
I see. Very good.
So there we go. Yeah, some more ideas. If there's anybody in the comment section who wants to get more questions in, maybe we'll do something like this again with Arto. It was great to have you on and shoot the breeze after the recent Euros and such high level. So thank you, Arto, for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for everything, and the good the program you have, all the stuff you put. And I'm really happy that the last information you give, you have the how do you say this, you can put this some studies. This is
Sure.
really good when you got the evidence based, because this I like a lot. So I'm a big fan of you, and keep the good work, and hope to be involved and chat with you maybe in the future again of some other topics.
Super, Arto.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, everybody. So we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for joining. See you in the next one.